And we're back live here. You are listening to Grecian Echoes here on WNTN 1550 AM in Cambridge, Needham, and Boston. We are streaming at GrecianEchoes.com. For those of you that are watching on Facebook, you are actually watching behind-the-scenes video live and in the studio. And it is at this time that I would like to welcome our guest this morning, Mr. Nick Lambros, who lives in Cranston, Rhode Island. He's a parishioner at the Church of the Annunciation in Cranston and a rising junior at Providence College, political science major, and hopes to add a minor in history in the near future. He currently works at his family's law practice, Lambros Law Offices. He also finished serving as a staff member of the Metropolis of Boston camp. In his free time, Nick researches genealogy, both of his own family and for his friends. And for the past few years, he's been documenting and compiling the various records pertaining to the history of the Church of the Annunciation in Cranston. The records include photographs, parishioner stories, and historical documents. Kalimera, Nick.
Kalimera.
How nice. How was your drive in this morning?
Very good. It was not too much traffic.
Not too much, yeah? Yeah, good. So tell us about your project. How did this particular project, tell the audience what it is and how did you get started?
So in high school, as part of one of my projects, I was required to come up with a sort of long-term project that would take me all 4 years of high school to do. So I created a Instagram page where I was documenting parishioner stories of my parish by doing interviews, mostly the older parishioners, some who were 100 years old. So they had been there from the start of the parish, and that got me interested in researching a little further into the history. So I started with interviewing my great aunt, who was born in 1918. So she had a ton of information about the formative years of the parish, when they started building their first actual church building and all that sort of information. And then I interviewed the daughter of one of the longtime priests in the 1920s up to the 50s, Mrs. Helen Pappas. So I got a ton of information from her. And then I started compiling it, posting it on Instagram. And then I really started, about 2 years ago, really looking into the history beyond just interviews, where I started looking at photos, doing Throwback Thursday posts, stuff like that, to see, I don't know if people were interested, and they were. So I pursued it, and I've been documenting everything from photos, interviews, historical documents, newspaper clippings, stuff like that, and putting it in a central timeline on our website. That way everyone in the parish can see it one day.
Well, that's just wonderful. So the website, since we mentioned it,
Yep.
This is of the Annunciation in Cranston.
Yep.
Do you know the website address?
Yep, I can pull it up right now.
People can just do a search, too, on the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church of Cranston.
Yep.
And one of the oldest parishes, I guess.
Yeah, 1905.
So what happened? It started in Providence, right?
It did.
And why did it move?
So there's a whole history about this, actually. They did studies looking at where the parishioners lived, and over time they started moving from downtown Providence to the suburbs. And over time, the majority of the parishioners no longer lived where the Providence Church was. They all lived in Cranston, Warwick, which are basically suburbs of Providence, but there are other cities further south. So they had a big decision to move, and the Archbishop got involved, and they ended up settling on moving to Providence. But there was a little bit of, that's a big parish history, I guess, looking into the conflicts and history of that. So it's really cool to see how it was resolved, and finally people came to build such a beautiful community in a new place after being in one place for so long. So It's really cool to see that on paper and in photos.
It's nice. I mean, your church had done a 100th yearbook.
Yep.
And do you know who pulled that together?
I do, actually. I have the names right here. I want to thank them definitely for all the work that they did. So
Great.
For the 100th book, it was the editor and production manager was Ellie Panichis, and then the editor of it was Nikki Samaras, and then that was mostly pulling stuff from the 75th anniversary book and then updating it.
Right.
Yep.
Now, you're fortunate because you have some historical files you were mentioning.
We do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what about organizational files, like the AHEPA? Do they have files there, for example?
So I'm not 100% sure about the AHEPA, to be completely honest. I haven't looked into that yet. I've mostly been focusing on general parish information.
Right.
But I'm sure that the AHEPA has some sort of information about when they were founded, their charter, officers, lists like that. So that's definitely something I want to do now that I actually found a ton of newspaper articles referencing our AHAPA, especially in the 1930s and 40s during leading up to World War II and then during World War II with the war relief efforts.
Good, good. That's excellent. I saw that you had a picture on that. You mentioned this timeline, and I want to go back and talk about that so people know, because I really like the way it was laid out. I think it was interesting you chose that program. But for me, just accessing first on my phone, I could just flip and see. And I saw a picture of a youth organization, kind of an early incantation of the Goya.
Yes.
Which was interesting. Is there anything else out of the pictures that may have caught your attention or something you didn't know?
Yeah, we had marching bands and a drum and bugle corps and all those things.
Really?
They were really like unique organizations that I would have never thought of. And then stuff like that I've seen pictures in the hallway of our church center, and then looking into them on like the old Providence Journal articles to see that they were in the newspaper all the time and were like competing in tournaments of marching bands.
Right.
Our parish had a presence, and that's kind of interesting.
Isn't that interesting, right? So how we are together as a community, but also how we interface with the greater community, the American community. Yeah, that's really wonderful. So did you have you mentioned you started in high school, but as a kid, did the old pictures kind of catch your fancy or
not really? I don't know what it was. I think I started getting into genealogy in high school, and that kind of led me down the old pictures. And then as part of interviewing my family for adding stuff to the family tree, it all kept leading back to like the early years of the parish and stuff like that, and like how they came to the United States and were involved in setting up the parish. Yeah. So that kind of got me into looking at old photos and then looking at the church.
Yeah. Now, do you have other friends your age that are doing this? You're the youngest guy I know.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one who's interested in this sort of thing.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just putting it in front of someone. I mean, half of it is the research and the digging and finding these little pockets of things. Now you have people bringing you material?
Yeah, I've actually people have like sent photos that they've found or things like that and helped me label people in our pictures that I've already had, and I didn't know who the individuals were. I post them on Facebook and Instagram every Thursday on our church social media accounts. So people have contributed to naming and like what events were if I didn't know the years. So it's cool to see community interaction. Yeah, it really is. It really is. And hopefully it's good because you grew up in the technology world, so you can take these old memories, whether it be through interview or old photographs, digitize them, document them a little bit better, and put them in some semblance in order. Are you also finding, I'm curious, of course, I'd love to come down and visit your church, but I'm curious, are you finding old photos from cultural organizations? I have. Like from what organizations? So they had the Hellenic Cultural Society from like the 70s onward. So there's a ton of photos of their events, especially relating to Cyprus during the 70s, like meeting with politicians and lobbying and things like that. So those are cool to see. And then we also had a big event, like a bicentennial of the United States event, where all the cultural groups in Rhode Island were invited, and all the Greek communities came together to put on a big event with dancing and like items from Greece, products, stuff like that, music. So there were tons of pictures from that event, a whole album basically. Oh, that's so great. Now, where is the material? Where is it being kept right now? So right now they're in our church hall, and we have file cabinets with all the information. So there's folders for each organization, and most of them are organized by basically time period, up until most of them go up to the Centennial book, and then after that there's a little less information, just because we haven't gone about centralizing everything for a new book, basically. Excellent. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest this morning is Nick Lambros. He is a parishioner from Cranston, Rhode Island, and he's very active in the Church of the Annunciation, a rising junior at Providence College, and a budding historian. And it's so nice to hear. We've had a couple of discussions now. I'm very excited that he's driven up, and he's live here in the studio. For those of you that are watching on Facebook, we are also streaming at GrecianEchoes.com, and this is being recorded. We do want to play one song so we can have a sip of water and kind of regroup in our thoughts. We'll be right back with Nick Lambros here on Grecian Echoes.
Μια κορδελιώτισσα ξανθή δικά σου μάτια έτρελανε στο κορδελιό με τα δικά σου μάτια.
Tetos Dimitriadis from his sing-along LP that came out in New York on Colonial Records. It was this volume 2. And as far as I know, that didn't make it to YouTube, but you are hearing it here on Grecian Echoes. We're back with our guest, Nick Lambros, and he's from Cranston, Rhode Island, and a young man who is taking history by the horns, as we say. And it's just very interesting to me, Nick, that at your age you have an interest, not just an interest, a passive interest, but you also saw something that needed to be done, and that you're doing it as you see a church community that's developed. In your view, looking back at the historical community, could it have existed without the church?
Probably not. Most of the organizations, cultural organizations and stuff like that, were all met at the church, and basically the priest was basically the leader of the community, and the parish council president was, like, if you look in the old newspaper articles, they say president of the local Greeks.
Yes.
So all of that, the church basically was the only center of the community.
Right. And hopefully it still is. Tell us a little bit about the Church of the Annunciation.
Sure. So we're located in Cranston, Rhode Island. We're founded in 1905 in Providence, and then moved to Cranston in the 60s. So that's basically the very broad overview, but we have 2 priests. We have Father Andrew George and Father Nick Lambros. I believe they're listening right now.
Great.
So hello.
Great. Hello. That's wonderful. So 2 priests. So you have a very active community.
Yep.
And do you have Sunday school?
Yep, we do.
A choir?
We do have a choir. I'm not sure if they're in session right now, because I know they take a summer hiatus. So
Good. And is there any Greek school?
Yep, there is a Greek school. Yep.
Excellent. That's so good. There's so many good things that are happening, and you have a festival coming up in the fall.
We
right?
do, in September.
Do you know when?
9th, 10th, and 11th.
Ah, nice. It's the same time as the cathedral,
Yep.
right? So the 9th, 10th, and 11th. And will the church be open, you think? Do you
Yes.
do church tours?
We do church tours.
Oh, good. So if I come down, I can get a tour, maybe.
Definitely.
Yeah. And tell us now, for your particular project, what would you like to see happen in the future?
I'd definitely like to see more people maybe involved in contributing things that they might have lying around their house, or photo albums that they might not even care about, just to maybe give them to the church to be able to document them before they get lost.
Yes.
And especially to maybe interview older family members, or get them to be interviewed with me or someone else who wants to be involved, in order to preserve these stories.
Yeah.
Especially because it's about a community, so we want as much community involvement as possible in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you in our listening audience now, please know that there is a historian who working in Cranston, Rhode Island, because our communities are all connected in one way or another. And I think Nick mentioned that the church originally started in Providence.
Yep.
And then moved in 1968. So some of the old cultural photos, whether it's the Hios Society or something like that you'll find from all the surrounding communities. The way we have up in Manchester, we have photos with Nashua, photos with Lowell, photos with down here.
Yep.
So we're all connected, which is wonderful. But if you have a friend who's or someone that you know that is from Rhode Island, in particular Providence, Cranston area, they may have histories and memories, and maybe these artifacts, these documents, these photos. And unfortunately, when they pass away, a lot of people don't understand the real value there. And the fact that there is a young man here that's taken on the responsibility of pulling together the history and relating these photos. So all of a sudden now, if you look at enough of these, you're going to pick that up and say, oh, that must be, or I see so-and-so.
Yep.
And that's a really great thing. You're somewhere, I think, in the website or in the book we were looking at earlier, The Hellenic Tour by Clara Rampakis, that it mentioned that there was a church library that was established.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yes, we do have a library. My grandfather, also same name as me, was involved in founding that.
Did he?
Yep. So
it goes way back.
Yep, to the 70s, I believe.
That's incredible. That's great. So maybe you'll breathe some life into that, and people can see, what's going on there. So The festival is in the fall,
Yep.
and then we'll probably have church tours, and so we can look forward to that. I want to mention something again that was really stuck out for me on your resume. You mentioned that you had just come off being a staff member
Yep.
at the Metropolis of Boston camp.
Yes, I did.
Tell us about the camp.
It's a great place. I recommend everybody go. If you're either in college to go be a staff member, or if you're younger than that, elementary school, middle school, high school, to go as a camper.
Yeah.
It's a great place. You have a great time, make great friends, and learn a lot about your faith.
It's really wonderful. Then you went as a younger person as well?
I did. I went a few times as a camper, and then last year I went as a staff member for the first time.
And as a camper when you went, did you have other friends that were with you?
I did. I had some friends from my parish, and then some people, my cousins from Virginia went, so it was nice.
Yeah. Everyone that I've talked to that has been through that experience said that they're making lifelong friendships. Yep. I really think we're going to get together again. We don't have a lot of organizations that are binding us nationally.
Yeah.
The church had underlying a youth organization, a Goya, that's not really in place anymore, and things like that. Maybe this is time for a little revolution, and for the youth to take back the church and the community, get involved. Don't wait until you're 60 years old. By the way, I have an idea for the camp. I don't know. Could we set aside a cabin or two for some old people? You know? And you could say, here the Yerondakia. No? Just
funny.
an idea. So, what is the typical day at the camp? Tell me, what would you do?
Yep. So you wake up pretty early and then go to church. You have chapel,
Nice.
and then after that, alone with God. It's a big part of camp. It's like 10 minutes I think 10 minutes of silence, basically.
Right.
And then we go for breakfast, and then the activities start for the day.
Yeah.
Then there's lunch, and then more activities. We have halftime, which is like a free-for-all kind of thing for a few hours, and then chapel again, dinner, and then night activity, and then
Wow.
repeat.
Now, there's all kinds of there's sports courts that
Yep.
are up there now. It's been a few years since I've been, but I've read about these things happening. So now, as a staffer, how did that happen? How did you get involved? Did you apply yourself?
I did. I applied.
Yeah.
I had a great time as a camper, and I wanted to give back, I guess.
Good.
Make sure other people had a great time the way I did. So.
Right.
And it's just a good experience overall. So.
That's so excellent. Our guest this morning is Nick Lambros. He's from Cranston, Rhode Island. Nick Lambros, Lambros. I was asking if you knew of the Lambros family in
Yep.
Concord, New Hampshire. They're lawyers, but now I'm thinking they're spelling their name a little different. They do the MP, I think, that kind of Greek thing. Tell us about your family. Where are they from? Your parents are from?
Sure.
Yeah.
So my dad's from Cranston. He grew up in Cranston, Rhode Island. His grandparents were from Greece, from all over, from
Really?
Peloponneso, and then one of his grandmothers was from Veria.
Beautiful Horio.
Yep, and then my mom was born in Thessaloniki,
Oh,
and then came here as a
nice.
little kid. And
Yeah.
her grandparents were three of them were from Turkey, and Eastern Thrace and Asia Minor, and then one was from northern Greece. So
That's
a little
nice.
bit of all over Greece that I've
It's
found.
nice that you're finding out about your
Yep.
roots and you've explored that.
Yeah, I love genealogy and building family trees, so that's I have all the documents and stuff like that. So I guess I just really like documents.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, you're in a good role in what you're doing in this history and preservation work. And again, if anyone knows of anyone that's from the Rhode Island area in Cranston, or maybe they're down there now and they don't even know this is happening, let them know, spread the word. That's how we get the word out there.
Yeah, no, it's all available on our website. It's annunciationri.org, and then you go to the About Us tab, and then it's Our History, and everything's there. There's timeline, there's PDFs, there's old photos.
Really?
Slowly, I'm going to be adding more old photos once I identify everyone in the pictures. So we want everybody to be able to. There's an option to submit photos if you have them.
Oh, nice.
Or to be interviewed if you want to set up an interview. So
Wonderful.
make sure to look at that.
Yeah, there's a lot. And do you have the website or
Yep.
some guide? Go ahead. You
Yeah,
can
it's
say.
annunciationri.org.
Oh, no, that's easy,
Yep.
isn't it? Annunciationri.org.
Yep. And then there's an About Us, and there's a tab, a drop-down tab, and then you click Our History.
Excellent, excellent. And you have a mailing list. The church, I'm sure, has a mailing list
Yep.
that people can join and know of
Yes.
these events. But it's so great. And now, in the course of your work, have you found others that, like yourself, from other communities that are doing this, or not yet?
I haven't yet. I've really just focused on our parish. I haven't really branched out yet, but I'm sure because I found a lot of stuff about collaborating with other parishes in the history, like especially in the early years,
Yeah.
like sharing priests or rotating stuff like that. It might be interesting to look at other parishes who may have had similar members of the community, like the same parish priest after us or before us,
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. Maybe we could get together. I think I've met a couple of people that are interested in
Yep.
history, and maybe we can get together and put the call out to
Yeah.
all the churches.
Definitely.
And then we can have a meeting at the Archbishop Yakovos Library, because there is a wealth of information there. And it's important for us to write the history for ourselves, for sharing it for future generations, but also as we as Greek Americans want to know what we contributed to society, that we were really good that way. I really appreciate you coming in. Are there any other thoughts that you have?
Just for people to submit things if they have anything, and to definitely comment or let me know if you have anything that you want to share via interview or whatever you have. There's an option on the website to do that, a little Google form.
Excellent.
So I'd be happy to communicate with people if they have any questions or things like that via that.
Excellent. Why don't we open up the phone line? You've got a few minutes, right?
Yep.
There's a listener that's listening and they just want to make the call. Absolutely not. Do you have your pen? Are you writing it down? 781-559-3300. That's the studio line here, 781-559-3300. If you wanted to say hello to Nick and wish him congratulations in his work, or compliment, or if you have any questions. Sometimes people are shy. I never call in.
Yeah.
Do you ever call into the
No.
radio? Never, right?
No, I don't.
All right. We won't do the call-in thing then, because I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Right, hold on. $10,000 for the first caller. No, that won't work. No. Nope, that didn't work either. Okay, so we're about 20 minutes before the hour of 10 o'clock. I want to thank you, Nick, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It was just great. It was really great. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work and to staying in touch.
Of course.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our guest this morning, Nick Lambros, who is from the Church of the Annunciation in Cranston, Rhode Island. He's a young man that's dedicated to his church and to his culture and to our history. And it's so nice to meet him and have him here today.